After awakening, something unexpected can happen. One day the urgency is gone. The inner push that used to move everything forward is no longer there. Goals feel flat. Plans feel oddly irrelevant. Even things that once felt meaningful now seem strangely distant. The drive disappears, not dramatically, not all at once, just quietly. This is rarely talked about. Most stories about awakening focus on clarity, freedom, light. They skip the part where one lies awake in the morning, staring at the ceiling, not depressed exactly, but not moved either. The world keeps asking for ambition, direction, enthusiasm, and inside there is silence. At first, the silence can feel peaceful, like stepping out of a burning building into fresh air. But slowly, something else appears. A dull confusion, a sense of drifting, the unsettling thought something must be wrong. It can look like demotivation, like burnout, like loss of purpose, but what is actually happening runs deeper than that. Somewhere along the path of awakening, often after a strong inner shift or the quiet collapse of an old identity, the ground rearranges itself. The structures that once held motivation together begin to dissolve, not because of failure, but because they are no longer true. For most of life, motivation comes from the personality, from the constructed self that learned how to survive, succeed, be valued. This self is driven by goals, timelines, comparison, approval. It wants movement. It needs proof. That drive was not wrong. It was necessary. But when awakening begins, the mask becomes visible as a mask. The stage lights turn on. The script is seen for what it is. And once that happens, the old fuel stops working. The body no longer responds to pressure. The mind no longer believes in its own urgency. Ambitions that once felt exciting now feel strangely hollow. 5-year plans, productivity rituals, motivational slogans all start to lose their grip. Not because something broke, but because the identity they belong to is no longer in charge. This creates a very specific inner state. It feels like emptiness, but not the dramatic kind, more like a quiet fog, a neutral stillness that does not offer answers or direction. There is no clear desire to go back, but no clarity about what comes next either. Many mistake this for regression. Modern culture has no patience for this phase. Stillness is labeled as laziness. Pauses are treated as problems to fix. Silence is quickly filled with advice, medication, distractions, or spiritual bypassing. But this state is not a malfunction. It is a threshold. The old ego-driven motivation has dissolved, but the deeper source of movement has not yet organized itself. This is why it feels uncomfortable. The psyche is recalibrating. Energy is being withdrawn from roles, goals, and identities that no longer resonate. What remains is raw, undefined potential, unshaped clay. In alchemy, this stage is called nigredo, the blackening, the phase where structures dissolve before something new can emerge. In psychology, it resembles a cocoon phase, not a collapse, but a suspension. Nothing looks productive here, and that is precisely the point. When motivation disappears after awakening, it is often because something deeper than personality and identity is no longer willing to be driven by fear, performance, or approval. It is a quiet no to a life built around survival rather than truth. This can feel unsettling. The mind wants direction, it wants reasons, it wants momentum. But what is happening is not paralysis, it is listening. The old voice that shouted commands has gone silent, and the new voice does not shout, it whispers. Sometimes it does not speak at all. Many try to escape this phase. Some push themselves back into ambition. Others float into detachment, calling everything meaningless. Both are attempts to avoid the discomfort of not knowing. But true awakening does not ask for disappearance from life. It asks for embodiment. Before life can be lived from a deeper center, there is often a pause where nothing seems to move. A sacred waiting period where the nervous system learns a different rhythm, where action is no longer forced. At first, there is nothing to replace the old motivation, no excitement, no certainty, just a quiet internal space. And then, slowly, almost imperceptibly, something begins to stir, not as pressure, not as obligation, but as a subtle pull. It does not demand action, it invites it. This new form of motivation feels very different. It is not born from anxiety or lack. It does not rush. It does not compete. It does not need validation. It moves from alignment rather than ambition. Instead of asking what should be done, the question becomes what feels quietly alive. Instead of forcing clarity, there is a willingness to wait for it. Action begins to arise not from urgency but from resonance, not from fear of falling behind, but from an inner yes that cannot be explained, only felt. This is motivation guided by the deeper self. It does not look impressive, it often looks simple, sometimes even ordinary, but it is sustainable. Life lived from this place no longer feels like a performance. There is less striving but more truth, less noise but more coherence. Choices are made not to prove worth but to remain intact. Energy returns but in a different form, quieter, more stable. Creation happens even without applause. Boundaries are held even when misunderstood. Movement happens without force. So if motivation has disappeared after awakening, it does not mean something was lost. It means an old fire has burned itself out, and a deeper flame is learning how to breathe. This is not the end of the path. It is the moment where life stops being driven by the mask of ego and begins to listen for the deeper ground of consciousness beneath it. And that listening takes time.